Okay, so today we're taking a look at the text of DBG 1.3, lines 14 through 21, I think. I'm so rough on these line numbers. But we're picking up where we left off in class yesterday. And we're starting at itemque denorigi haiduo, which you can see, which is where the red schema starts. So let's jump right in. Right before this text, what we were covering yesterday, we were talking about what Orgetorix is up to. Orgetorix, again, is the leader of the Helvetii, and as the leader of the Helvetii, he thinks he wants to rule more land, and the Helvetian land is just too small. And by the nature of the area in which the Helvetians are, it's very hard to expand. So he's decided to join up, very smartly, I might add, he's decided to join up with the surrounding regions, with the other tribes in the surrounding area, so that they create one united front, and all together, these three tribes move forward to expand their regions as one. That's a really big deal because the Helvetians are pretty strong, but they can't take over vast swaths of land in Gaul because there's so many other tribes there that they can't take over as one group. So joining up with these other groups, as we're about to read, for example, we read yesterday about how Orgetorix convinces Casticus, who's the Sequani, to join up with him. So the Helvetians are joining up with the Sequani, and we're about to read about how he convinces Dumnorix, the leader of the Aedui, to join up with him too. So this group of three tribes, the Helvetii, the Sequani, and the Aedui, are getting together to go take over more Gaul and get more land. So we're starting with itemque. And keep in mind this is in the middle of the sentence. So we just said Orgetorix persuades Casticus to join up with him. And Orgetorix, and now we have to go all the way to your main verb. So look at where we are at itemque, and go all the way down. We don't have a main verb. We don't have a main verb. Ooh, we're in a relative clause here, starting with qui. We're still in the relative clause. That's not a main verb. It's in the relative clause. That's not a main verb. It's in the relative clause. Honoretur is subjunctive. That's not a main verb. Keep going. Oh, persuadet. Persuadet is our main verb, so you've got to start there. And he persuades. And notice persuades takes a dative direct object. Persuadet does. So you want to find the dative, go all the way back up to Dumnorigi Aiduo. So he persuades Dumnorix. Dumnorix. Dumnorix, the Aiduian. The tribe is spelled Aedui. So he persuades Dumnorix, the Aedui, the brother of, ready for this name? Duikiacus. So, he persuades Dumnorix, the Aedui, the brother of Duikiacus. The brother of Duikiacus, who? So this who is referring back to Duikiacus. Brother who, at that time, eo tempora, who at that time was holding the state, or was holding the principate in his state, or was holding the power in his state, and who was greatly, Maxima, who was greatly Apeptus pleasing to the plebeians. So Duikiacus is really much loved by the plebeians, which Caesar can relate to. But that's not who Orgetorix is trying to get to lead the revolt with him. He's trying to get the brother who wants power too, and isn't in power because Duikiacus is in power. So Orgetorix, we can supply that, persuades Dumnorix, the Aedui, the brother of Duikiacus, who at that time was holding power in his own state and was very much pleasing to the plebeians. Item, he convinces him, he persuades him for the same. He persuades him, you can supply to do if you want to. He persuades him to do the same, to join him. He persuades him, and now we get a little bit more specific, that, starting with this ut, that he should try the same. So, he's basically saying, hey, I just convinced Casticus, the Sequani, to join up with me and lead his people to greater power, and now I'm going to convince Dumnorix, so that he would try the same thing. Idem. And, he gives dot his daughter Eti to him, dative, in matrimony. So Argetorix marries off his daughter to Dumnorix, the leader of the Aedui revolt. All right. Now things get a little bit complicated. Let's look at probat. Probat is your main verb. That is where you want to start. Take particular note of where these clauses are. Probat is right in the middle of one clause, and then the second clause starts immediately. So your whole sentence is just probat. He proves, or he demonstrates, and we get into an indirect statement right away. Go to your subject accusative, which in this case is perficere conata, working together as your subject. So he proves that to complete these things having been tried. So that is all of this, all together, this whole darn thing, oh dear, this whole thing is acting as your subject together. So he demonstrates that to complete these things having been tried was per facile factu, easy to do. Now, per facile factu, that's a weird looking little construction. Per facile factu is wait if I can get my pen ready, because this is very exciting. It is a supine, like mirabile dictu in the Aeneid, or miserabile visu, which we also had in the Aeneid. When you have a supine, you have a neuter adjective, like per facile, meaning very easy, and a perfect passive participle with a u ending, which is super strange. And it basically is translated like an infinitive, to do. So he demonstrates that to complete these things, having been tried, was very easy to do, at least for them. To complete these things was very easy for them to do. Propteria quod, because. All of those words, propteria quod, it just means because. Imagine the propteria isn't there. Caesar likes to be excessive. So, he convinces everyone that to complete these things, basically to take over the rest of Gaul together, was very easy for them to do because, ipse, he himself, esset, was obtenturus, about to obtain. Take a look at what that form is. See that you are thrown in there? Obtenturus, future active participle. That he was about to obtain the power of his own state. So he convinces Casticus and Dumnorix that they together can take over the rest of Gaul because, well, he's about to obtain power in his own state, and then he'll have more power, and just power will grow in and of itself. Okay, so he demonstrates that it will be easy because he's about to obtain power in his own state, and he demonstrates, you have to take probat again. This is another example of gapping. He demonstrates that, now we get into our second indirect statement, going off of probat. He demonstrates that there is no doubt, there is non dubium, there is no doubt that quin basically is translated like ut. If you want to think about it as an ut, that's totally fine. So he demonstrates that there is no doubt that the Helvetians are the most able, are by far the most able of all the Gauls. So, if anyone's going to take over the rest of Gaul, it's going to be the Helvetians. That's what he demonstrates. Okay. And finally, our last indirect statement of this sentence, notice how there are three of them. Two of them go off of probat as their main verb. This last indirect statement goes off of confirmat. We have a new main verb now. So he demonstrates that to do all this stuff will be easy because he's about to obtain power of his own state. And he demonstrates that there's, without a doubt, the Helvetians are the most able of all the Gauls. And he confirms, confirmat. He confirms that he, subject accusative, that he himself will take over, consulatorum esse. You have to add the esse, notice that ellipsis there. It's a future infinitive. So he confirms that he will take over the kingdoms for them with his own resources, or with his own soldiers, and with his own army. And so they won't even have to supply all that much. Together, he just needs their permission for passage through their lands, and then he, with his own supplies and with his own army, will take over the kingdoms for them. Okay, adductee. Having been moved hoc oratione by this speech, they give faith and an oath. Jus jurandum is an idiom. Oops, let's get my pen back. It's an idiom that just means an oath. It's a very, very strong oath. And fidem here doesn't just mean faith, but it means specifically the faith between commander and soldier. So they have to have this mutual faith that the commander has what's right for the soldier in mind, and the soldier has to promise to do what the commander says. So it has to be this kind of back and forth process, and that's what fidem represents. So these guys, Casticus and Dumnorix, having been moved by this speech that Orgetorix has just given them, they give their faith, they give their utter and complete and total trust, and a jus jurandum and an oath amongst themselves. And regno occupato, with the kingdom having been occupied through, in English we want to say with, but you can say through here. With the kingdom having been occupied through the three most powerful and most firm peoples. So this would be the Sequani, these three peoples, the Sequani with Casticus, the Helvetii with Orgetorix, and the Aedui with Dumnorix. These are the three main groups. So with the kingdom having been occupied through these three most powerful and most firm peoples, they hope, sperant is your main verb, they hope that, they are able to gain control of all of Gaul. And that's where we are. So, basically, Orgetorix, the leader of the Helvetii, has gone around to his neighbors and said, hey, I will fight for you. I just need your permission. I want to join up with you. I need your permission to cross through your lands, use some of your resources, though I'll mostly use my own resources, and then I can take over the rest of Gaul for you, and you won't have to do hardly anything. Just let me pass through. And Dumnorix and Casticus both say, awesome, absolutely. So they join up, they give each other their faith, they give each other a jus jurandum, their oath, and now they hope that together, the three most powerful, most firm peoples, they will be able to gain control of all of Gaul. All right, this is the force that Caesar is coming up against. It's not just one tribe, it's three tribes all together being led at this point by Orgetorix. That doesn't last forever, but at this point it is. Okay, next up we have 1.4 due Monday. Please do take note of any questions that you just had. We will have some time in class, though not much. Be sure to email me or just come by and ask me any questions that you have on this past section. Have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you later.